family, and welcome to another Sunday evening session with Brian Janice. We so hope you all are enjoying your weekend, and happy V-Day to those that are celebrating it. But today we are going to enlighten our Facebook and YouTube family on what true love is, true black love. You know, we get so caught up in the holidays, we get caught up in celebrating a lot of the holidays that were transferred to us by others, when we actually, our culture did things a little differently. We made every day count. We loved every day. We respected and we loved on our mothers, our fathers, our neighbors, our children, aunts, uncles. You know, we did that. So Valentine's Day, even for me, it is not the representation, even though it is a good thought, but I would be more apt to love and to treat people with love and give them something nice on any day. You know, Brian is a lot different than I am in retrospect when it comes to holidays. Brian doesn't believe in celebrating Valentine's Day. He doesn't believe in celebrating Christmas. He doesn't do all that. So what he does, he shows me love every day of the year. 365 days with 366 being leap year. And that I had to grow to love and respect and understand, because I didn't understand that. I'm like, you're not going to give me anything for Valentine's? You're not going to give me anything for Christmas? You know, and not realizing that I've been by myself for so long, I wasn't getting anything anyway. If it wasn't for my children, there were years that I didn't even think of a holiday, especially Valentine. So for those women that don't have a significant other in their lives, that they're not getting all of these gifts and things, don't entertain that, because that is not what real love is. You know, the first love is self-love. That is when you have to love yourself in spite of everything, in spite of who you are, who you think you are, or who anybody else thinks you are. You validate that love with yourself. Go and celebrate yourself. There are many times that I've just gone out to have a meal by myself, and I love that, you know, because it keeps me in touch with who I am as a black woman. It keeps me in touch with who I want my girls to be as black women. Learn to love and respect yourself. Learn to do good for yourself. Learn to be who you want to be for yourself. And in that way, if someone comes along that you happen to fall in love with, you'll rest assured, hey, I'm me. I got me. And that's good enough. Because that way, if you love yourself, you can love that person even more. And then you understand. You can reflect on what true love really is. And I'm just so excited about that, because I didn't get in an uproar because Brian says, oh, we're not going out to eat to dinner. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic. So that didn't even faze me. Yes, we had dinner at home and we invited a couple over. But as far as all of this going on with Valentine, we didn't do that. We spent the day with our grandchildren. We took care of the grandchildren today. So those are the kind of things that you realize that is what love is. And always remember, love is as love does. So if you just showing me love on Valentine's Day, come on, tomorrow is February the 15th on a Monday, and most of us have to go to work tomorrow. How are you going to treat me when I get up in the morning? How are you going to treat me when I come home from work tomorrow after a long, tiring day? So we got to get in our mindsets that every day should be celebrated. And that's not to say you have to buy me anything. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you treat me, what you show me, how you respect me, how you respect my family and my friends. That is what I'm talking about. So I'm going to let Brian chime in on me now, because he can really break down this black love for us. Because trust me, I've been getting it from him for over 3 years now. And it's not the easiest thing to accept or adapt to. But once you get it, you got it. And you don't want anything else. It's beautiful. And I love my black women, my black sisters, my black friends. You guys rock, you're awesome, and we're all beautiful. And I'm a Valentine every day. My blood is red, so that's the color I celebrate today and every day. Because guess what? I got a big heart for people. I love people, and I will show you who I am, not just today, but every day.
Well, awesome, Miss Janice. And of course, we are, on the precipice of some new things happening within the black community, the black family. So in reference to the black, what you would classify as black love, we're hoping that black love becomes a staple again in our communities.
Yes, okay. Definitely.
So we are excited about just the discussion tonight. We are going to kind of veer from what we were originally planned, because Janice wanted to discuss black love. Yes. So we're not going to be talking about we may get into a couple of figures in history, but we're just going to kind of veer from that today, guys. So let's talk about black love. I know Janice have kind of given you all her definition on what she thinks, and I know she's probably told you all that I don't celebrate particular days.
He doesn't. Okay. He will celebrate a birthday occasionally, but
Yeah,
but I love that. I've grown to love and respect that.
So I think in order to define black love, you've got to talk about what black love isn't first.
Okay.
Okay, and then in retrospect to that, we can understand exactly what black love is. Okay, so it's hard to know what black love is if you don't define what black love isn't. And black love isn't individuals being in a relationship together, so-called loving one another. Mm-hmm. That is not the definition of black love.
Wow.
Okay, so black love has been mistaken in our community as it relates to black people, two individuals being in a relationship. That does not define black love. Okay, that is a black relationship. That is a relationship with a black man and a black woman.
Okay.
That is not black love. Okay, so now that we got that clear, so black love is not a relationship between a man and a woman, correct?
Okay, that's correct.
Okay, so black love, when you talk about black love, we have to go back to understanding the basic foundation and the basic structure of what we know to be as the family, as the black family.
All right.
Okay, and that is the basic structure. That's the basic foundation. It goes a little bit deeper than that. But the reason that I'm pointing out the black family is because you cannot truly deal with black love without understanding the destruction of the black family by way of regulations and policies that were set in place when this Constitution was written and put in place, and black people were not considered to be human beings at that time but property. So they were not the whole slave assimilation into another culture.
Yes.
The whole mind manipulation that took place. What was intricately interwoven into this country was the destruction of the black family by way of policies and regulations.
Okay.
So when we understand that,
yes,
we have to understand that this country have never been in support of black love, because one of the first things that it did was declare war on our black families.
Wow.
By separating our men from our women, separating our children from our men and our women, who we call mothers and fathers, separating cousins, separating aunts, uncles. The first thing that this country did was declare war against the black family,
Wow.
literally bringing black love to a screeching halt. Okay? So black love is, like I said, the foundation of it has always been the family structure. Now, what does the family structure come out of?
Yeah.
The family structure comes out of what we would call a community.
Yes.
Okay? What we would call a community that loves one another. And when I say loves one another, that are committed to the interest of one another as a people group.
Yes.
So let's give some examples of a committed love to a particular people. And I always have to refer to my own history as well as the history of many people that have a similar story as mine, that grew up not wealthy, grew up with parents working 1, 2, 3 jobs, but we had a community of mothers that looked after me, that made sure I did not get in trouble.
Right.
When my mom and father were working,
yes,
we had a community of fathers that fed us and protected us and made sure that nobody would harm us outside of our community. Now, I'm not talking about a neighborhood, because there's a difference between a neighborhood and a community.
That's exactly
okay?
right.
A neighborhood is a place where you live, as Dr. Claude Anderson said, and where you lay your head to sleep and get up and go to work the next morning. But a community is a place where you intricately are involved in the welfare and well-being of people that look like you. What does that mean? It means that a community is self-sustainable.
Yes.
It means that a community have businesses in them that they support,
yes,
that support each other. Okay?
Yes.
A community has its own code of ethics,
yes,
that police one another.
Yes.
See, and that's what I mean when I said there were those men, those grandfathers. I could still remember in my childhood, one of my best friend's grandfather. He was the grandfather for everybody in Patterson Court.
All right now.
You understand
yes,
what I'm saying?
I got it.
We were safe and we were secure. We didn't have to worry about being, molested or harmed or anything like that. And he looked out for all the kids. Didn't matter what family you were from, because you were all the same family.
Yes.
You were the black family.
Yes.
Okay, so when I talk about love, we had a black pool hall that was
yes,
right there in the ghetto. You understand? We had a black grocery store. Some of the people that lived in Montgomery probably remember this, Phillips grocery store. I remember Mr. Phillips vividly, because he was one of the few black men that I remember and can recall that was a store owner.
Oh, yes.
So it was just profound in me growing up in a community. You know, we had black taxi company.
Yes, we
so
did.
All
yes,
of those things were is what defined black love. Black people loved each other. And then if we quarreled with one another.
All right now. Yes.
Okay. If we had disagreements with one another.
Yes.
Then we did not allow our disagreements to separate us from the responsibility of taking care of the community.
Exactly, Brian.
Okay? We hashed those agreements out,
yes,
we settled those quarrels, and we made the community stronger. So that, when we talk about black love, that is the definition of black love. We're not talking about black relationships, okay? Black relationships is only exist within 1, 2, or 3 people. Like if you've got daughters and sons that are involved, you understand what I'm saying? But I'm talking about, when you talk about black love far exceeds that. And see, black love was disrupted when we were brought here under the guise of capitalism. Black love was disrupted when our women were raped by the slave master, and our men were beaten and made to watch. You understand? the thuggery of those that pillaged our communities and our tribal, tribal gatherings and our tribal communities.
Yes.
So when we were brought here, even prior to being brought here, black love was disrupted by our European counterparts. And unfortunately, we have been struggling for over 400 years to regain what true black love is. Now, let's look at when we talk about black love. You hear the word self-love.
Self-love, yes, a lot.
Yes, used a lot.
Yeah.
Especially in the conscious community, what we call the conscious community, okay? Those that's
I use it, Brian.
Uh-huh.
I feel self-love, loving me, allows me to freely love you and love others.
So what is loving you?
Accepting who I am, accepting my flaws. I may not have the what they would say, a perfect figure. I may have a little, little weight on me, and so what? I accept that, even though I want to do better, but I accept that part of me. I don't not just like me because I've gained extra pounds, because I'm working on being better. I may not have the prettiest face to some others, but to me, I'm beautiful. It doesn't matter here. My mind, I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, as some people would say, but to me, my intellect is worthy of everything to me. So I feel like if I've accepted who I am, even though you help me be better, others can help me be better, I accept who I am. And if there are things about me, and if I'm told constructively that, Janice, you may need to look at that, or you may want to change that, it doesn't offend me if you tell me in the right manner. I want to work on that, because that may be a problem down the road for me.
So the definition that you just gave as it relates to self-love is more appropriately defined as self-knowledge. Okay? Because what you just defined is understanding who you are as an individual and being able to accept who you are as that individual. Okay?
Okay.
So your definition of self-love is more accurately defined as self-knowledge. Now, when we talk about self-knowledge, let's go a little bit deeper into that. Okay? Because you cannot love yourself without knowing yourself.
Okay. I understand.
Okay, you understand. So that's very essential. So when our ancestors, when we talk about in the conscious community, and when we talk about in the African community, in the African American community, having self-knowledge, what we are trying to understand is who we were as a people. Okay? Because who we were as a people has been lost. It is very difficult now to know who we are. So the whole question of self-knowledge goes back to me understanding who we were. Who was I?
Yes.
And I can only see that through the eyes of my ancestors, who I was. See, I had to be more than a slave. And see, a lot of people don't get to the place to where they cherish self-knowledge because they look at parts of our history as blights in the journey. You understand what I'm saying? They'll look at slavery and they'll say stuff like, oh, well, that was so long ago. Okay. They are ashamed of parts of our history.
Brian, and I'm guilty of that.
Yes.
I was guilty. I was very guilty of that.
Yes. And so if that is the case, then it's very difficult for a person to acknowledge who they are. It's very difficult to understand who they are. It's very difficult to say that they have knowledge of themselves when part of who they are, which is their ancestors, brings shame on them. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So they have to look beyond that and to know that before we were slaves, we were something else. And before we were something else, before we were slaves, we were something else before that. Okay, so what I'm saying is that love, defined in the European context, is absolutely nothing. It is absolutely, it has
no value.
Done exactly.
No
value. It has done nothing for black people but calls us to look at love from a exterior and physical makeup.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why women tend to focus on, if they have a little bit of weight on them, then they have to tell themselves, even though I'm overweight, I love me. No, what that says is there's some insecurities about who you are, and you have to pacify yourself by saying that you love yourself being overweight because you feel that somebody else don't love you being overweight.
Come on, Brian.
So that is the mindset that we have to get rid of as a people. Self-love is not wrapped up into you having a weight problem and then being able to accept your weight problem. That has nothing to do with self-love. What that is an insecure person that's trying to pacify that they're overweight because they understand that other people are looking at them critically, and they are only way that they feel they can be accepted is by accepting first themselves that they have a weight problem. That has nothing to do with black love, has nothing to do with self-love.
So even when you tell me, sweetie, you need to work on your weight. If
I tell you, sweetie, you need to work on your weight, it's because you need to work on your weight. It has nothing to do with self-love. You understand what I'm saying? Has everything to do with self-health.
Okay now.
You being healthy. Okay, you being able to get out there with your grandkids and run with your grandkids without going 2 steps and being out of breath. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, it has nothing to do with, but see what we try to do in order to make it look like or make ourselves feel like we're okay is we cover up those insecurities. Okay? See, one thing we have to realize as black people, you've got to take the mask off. See, the only way to love yourself is to first take the mask off that you've put on in the fraud that you've perpetrated for all these years by saying, I accept myself being like this, because you really hate yourself being like that.
Come on now.
Okay, so in order to, to feel that you're worthy of all of these idioms that's being tossed around now, queen and princess and all of these other things, and I can love big woman's black love, all whatever it is, that's being tossed around. That is a definite sign that what you say you love, you really don't love. You're pacifying it, to accept that, yes, I do have some issues, but I'm okay with the issues because this is part of me, because I don't feel like I can overcome it. And see, that is a slave mentality being regurgitated over and over, because it was the slave master that put in our minds that we have to just accept being imperfect and inferior. See, it was the slave master that said you were ugly in all of whatever your beauty was.
We had big noses and big lips.
That's right. Your kinky hair. It was the slave master that first put that into our men and our women.
Wow.
And we regurgitate the same thing that the master said about us and pointed out about us, and then say that we're trying to overcome some things, okay, by labeling it self-love, accepting some inferiorities, accepting some imperfections, accepting that if I would just get out there and walk a mile a day, commit myself to eating right and push myself away from the table, some things could change about my weight. And now we're just illustrating, using this as an illustration. We're not purposely, this is not sent to anyone in particular.
This is helpful. Brian.
Absolutely. But we have to do this. So we do the same thing, okay? If we're trying to hide something, the best way to hide it is to say, I accept the way that I am. And that literally says that you have a problem with the way you are. When you have to tell yourself that you accept the way that you are. No, what you need to do is do something about the way that you are. See, that's where black love comes in. Black love comes in to the picture and says, no. Anything that is worth having is worth being able to change yourself to have. Understand that. If we're going to have liberty, that means we have to change our mindset. In order to have liberty. See, if we're going to ever be free as a black people and stop looking down on each other and stop having politicians to dictate who we are, stop having TV programs to say what we do and what we don't do and stereotype us, calling us thugs and bees and, whores and all of this other stuff. If we're going to get away from the Atlanta housewives and all of this other stuff that make our women look a certain way, make our men look a certain way, and then we go out in the general public and everybody is stereotyped the black male and everybody has stereotyped the black woman. You understand what I'm saying? If we're going to produce another dynamic about who we are as a people group, then we have to look at the fact that if we truly love ourselves, we'll do something about ourselves. Okay? So we'll commit ourselves to change and not accept that this is just the way we are. No, that is not the way we are. You understand what I'm saying? We are better than that. You understand what I'm saying? See, being overweight, yes, there could be medical issues involved. There could be chemical imbalances, all of those things I understand. But if it's just from a problem of you eating too much and not getting enough exercise and drinking water, then you need to accept that I need to change something about myself.
Yeah, I agree.
You understand what I'm saying? So if you really love yourself, you don't mask the weight by saying, I accept it. And I just love all of these rolls of fat. No, you don't do that. You don't do that, family. What you say is that I love myself enough to change myself. Because if I can change me, then somebody else in the community that looks like me can also get inspired enough to change themselves. Yes. And then from that point,
you start a chain reaction.
Yes, for the good.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
It's helping people be
Absolutely.
healthy.
Absolutely. Yes. See, the Lucius and the Cookie Lions is not reality.
Come on now.
Understand what I'm saying? Okay? Everybody trying to get that money is not the reality of who we are as black people. And that does not help us as black people. So if we are going to change this dynamic as it relates to getting, just totally undoing what people think black love is between a man and a woman. No, black love flows deeper than that. It covers the whole nation of people that look like you and I that are in deplorable, miserable conditions. It covers a whole genre, you understand what I'm saying, of problems that we all suffer from by way of being.
Well, Brian, I want to interject here and just chime in just for a second. You know, it all starts with the mind. Mm-hmm. It starts with the mind. And one of the biggest things that has happened to African Americans, and not all African Americans, is The concept of reading. Reading, opening a book and reading. Who was that said if you don't want blacks to know something, put it in a book and they'll never find out?
Absolutely.
Who said that, Brian?
Oh,
I don't remember. If anybody knows who said that, please
chime in.
I'll
tell
us
you in a minute, though,
who said that. If you want to keep something from black people, put it in a book and they'll never find out. Well, growing up in little old Selma, Alabama, who I love dearly, I thought the world of Selma. Selma, Alabama was a community.
Brother Malcolm X said that.
Brother Malcolm X said. Brian said. Malcolm X said.
And Dr. Carter G. Woodson said that.
Wow.
Okay.
So Dr.
Carter G. Woodson preceded Brother Malcolm.
He sure
Brother
did.
Malcolm regurgitated what his ancestors said. Okay, and we just talked about Carter G. Woodson
last weekend. So it has to be some truth for our ancestors to say that, because they knew what they were keeping from us. Things about financing, financial literacy, things about the stock market. I can tell you right now that other cultures, other nationalities have been getting filthy rich, especially your European counterparts, from the stock market, whom we as African Americans, most of us knew nothing about.
See, you got to have money in order to invest in the game of stock.
But if you can read to understand, you can learn how to save so that you can invest.
I don't disagree with that, but the problem is not us investing in the stock market. The problem is that we have been economically discriminated against to the point to where there is no wealth in our community to invest collectively as a community. Now, look, watch this. The African American people, I'm talking about just black people, designated black people, bring in over $13.3 trillion a year. That we spend that much money as a consumer group. First thing when it comes to financial literacy is learning how to pool your money together, is learning how to save. The one thing that black people have, the one problem when it comes to financial literacy is whatever dollar we get, we spend it as fast as we get it. Okay, so that is the first thing. Yes, the reading, we must read, and that you're exactly right. Okay, we do not go to the owner's manual. We try to put the table together without even looking at the book. We try to put the TV together without even looking at the book. Okay, so those are things that we do. Why? Because we've been conditioned not to read. We've been conditioned not to write, so we don't write anymore. Okay, everything we do now is via the computer. You don't even have to pick up a pencil or pen anymore. Some of our people, you understand, some of our children uses a pen and a pencil so sparingly, and their handwriting is so atrocious that you wouldn't even know. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. What they're actually putting on the paper. So what we are discussing is something that we have been deprived of for over 400 years. And that is an equal opportunity when it comes to education.
Well, that's causing us a lot of people to lack love.
Well, it is a byproduct of love not being at its full operative state.
Because you have to have resources. You know what I'm saying?
You do have to have resources. And like I said, that's why I said we can't discuss true black love without discussing what isn't black love. And we can't discuss true black love without discussing what was done to us by way of institutionalizing us, by way of systematizing us, yes, by way of policy and regulations, yes, as far as the government, to destroy black love amongst black folk. And that was the disruption of the family in every arena. So what you're talking about, that's why policies were put in place that kept us on the bottom of the education ladder. That's why policies were put in place to redistribute the wealth out of our communities. You understand what I'm saying? That's why terrorist attacks were committed against us. In the early 1900s, where Black Wall Street was bombed, where Wilmington was bombed, where 1898, when you had Washington, D.C. bombed, and then back again in 1919 when you had, you understand what I'm saying? So there were so many, you understand? So many of our communities, what we call community, that was actually, now watch this, that was actually, give it that bag. I'm sorry. We had to take this is live. Okay. That was actually, decimated. Okay. So black love was interrupted. These towns were decimated by white KKK groups, by white terrorists, and by the federal government, by the National Guards being sent in. See, whenever we really have to consciously think, and that's why I have a problem with folks that buy into the notion that this government have now all of a sudden turned the page as it relates to black people. You understand? They have never been supportive of black love, black family structure. They've never been supportive of blacks having their own foundation so that blacks could be on an equal level playing ground. This is not talking about being ahead of everybody. This is talking about being equal with everyone else. Equal with the Hispanics that come over here. Equal with the Asians that come over here. Equal with the Indians that come over here. Equal with our counterparts that brought us over here. You understand what I'm saying? Yes. So we have to get back to understanding that. You follow me?
Yes.
We have to understand that black love consists of more than just physicality. Consists of more than just being able to materially bring you something. And see, most people don't even understand. We talk about, I heard you talking about Valentine's Day a little bit.
Yes.
But see, most people don't even understand the true history of Valentine's Day is one of the most brutal holidays that we celebrate in this country.
Break it down.
It goes back to 3rd century Rome, okay? And what they would have a feast of Lapirica, where in that feast, for 3 days, they would celebrate it from the 13th through the 15th of February. They had all type of orgies. They would have a drunken orgy where men and women were all sleeping with one another. It did not matter what. You had the Roman hierarchy, the Congress, and you had the Roman spiritual representatives there, which were part of the so-called church. All of these things, and for 3 days they would have this celebration. Now, this is the interesting thing. On the 14th, that day that we celebrate, they would sacrifice 2 young men. And in this one particular, in the 3rd century, history records, and this is also part of an oral story that had been passed down, as well as this being a recorded, written story, that there were 2 young men that they sacrificed in the 3rd century, and both of them had the name Valentine. Okay?
Were they black or white?
They were white. Okay? They had the name Valentine, and that's why the 14th became significant as it relates to Valentine's Day. Has nothing to do with what later on comes into play, St. Valentine. Had nothing to do with that. So we don't even know the history of some of this stuff that we celebrate that is wrapped up in a mockery, wrapped up into pillaging and pedophilia and brutality, and yet we will go out and spend all of our money on one day that's going away. You'll sacrifice a light bill, a water bill. That's not black love. See, that's not love for the family. That's not love for the community. That's not love for your people. That money, and yet when black folks need help, we can't come to one another. Do you understand?
Yes.
But yet we can take that same black person, will go out and on Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter or 4th of July and buy all of this stuff. And yet if their brother or sister need help, nah, man, I ain't got that. But yet you can celebrate these holidays of the rapists and the robbers that brought us over here and pillaged our family. You understand what I'm saying? Like you actually got a stake in some of this. Like what Frederick Douglass said, this war I'm wearing today.
Yes.
Frederick Douglass said, what is the 4th of July to me? It means nothing in his speech that he makes at the women's activist movement, the feminist movement, and he tells them, this means absolutely nothing to me. So we have gotten wrapped up, caught up, tangled up into stuff that has nothing to do with love. Why? Because we look at love from a European aspect and from a Greek aspect. We define love in the context of philia, which means brotherly from the Greek, from eros, which means erotic from the Greek, and from agape, which means sacrificial. We define love the way the European told us it should be defined, and it has nothing to do with our community. So if you are wrapped up talking about black, you love yourself from an eros standpoint, or from an agape standpoint, or from a phileo standpoint, that is a European mindset. If you don't love yourself, if you don't love your brother and your sister, you understand what I'm saying? And love them enough to correct them when they are in error. Love them enough to not talk about them behind their back and to agree with what the European says they are and to call them what the European calls them. No, love them enough to say, I want to help you, brother.
Yes.
Let me show you a different path. Let me help. You know, I had 4 young men sitting around the table this past Saturday.
Yes, you did.
And some of the things that I shared in mentoring these 4 young men, they were absolutely blown out the water. But these were young men that, just like the typical young man you see on the street, okay? Braids in their hair. One of them had the pants, kind of just hanging down. But they are brilliant young men. They're working. They're trying to move to the next phase of life.
Yes.
As it relates to being responsible and accountable and productive in society. You understand? So my knowledge that I could pass on to them to help them, first thing we did was attack history. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I asked them, I said, tell me what actually defines you as a person. Do you know anything about you? And I asked the same thing to you, just like I asked to anybody. And then how does the other man define you? Okay? So first thing I did is I said, I took them to the Declaration of Independence. Okay? We know these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed with certain inalienable rights. Well, guess what? I told them, you were not included in the all men. That only spoke to those that were actually rebelling against the king. It spoke to those that were actually writing the document. You were considered to be property. So you were not in the men group. Women were excluded also. It did not say all men and women. You understand what I'm saying? Are created equal. He said all men are created equal, which spoke directly in reference to those that were of a certain class coming to this country and had a certain level of wealth, and those that were in rebellion toward the king because they felt like taxation without representation was unfair. But yet we tried to do the same thing. Okay, we tried to exercise the same rights to protest, and guess what? You're thrown in jail.
Or you shot, you're killed.
You're shot, you're killed.
Yeah.
You're mocked, you're shamed, racism is thrown up and said, oh, why you keep doing it? Well, listen, what that proves is that I'm still not equal in the eyes of this America and this Constitution. So now I have to learn your game, and I have to be better at the game than you are. And guess what? Because most of the time our black people are smarter, they are better at the game when they learn the game. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to understand that black love goes a lot deeper than just the exterior. Okay, everybody. I know I'm pontificating again.
That's okay.
But so anything else you want to say about what you think as it relates to?
Well, I think that society has hurt black women, especially with labeling us based off of the physicalities of
Absolutely.
ourselves.
I would agree.
You tell me all the time. I used to wear my hair natural all the time, and I just wear what I wear because it's convenient. I don't do it trying to be European. I don't do it that way. I do it because it's convenient. And some people may say, well, that's just an excuse. Why don't you just wear your natural hair again? Well, I'm working on that. That's why I'm wearing
what? Go ahead.
The same thing about, women wearing all the false eyelashes, the makeup, all of that. That I think it is a fad. It's just a fad.
Well, it's more than a fad. And you hit the nail on the head. See, I love natural beauty is the best beauty. Now, that is Brian's opinion. Some people may disagree with that. You understand?
I do.
And they have their right to disagree with that. But I have to side with Baba Dick Gregory. Okay? And Dick Gregory says, what made our women hate themselves?
Wow.
He asked the question, okay? Who was it that told you you were ugly? How many times have I said that to you?
You always say that to me.
And why? I do that to jar you into asking yourself, yes, who was it that told me I was ugly? You see what I'm saying? Doesn't matter what I say as far as you being beautiful or to me and I love to look at you, things like that, love to feel on you, whatever, the things I do. But if you don't believe
that,
you understand?
Yeah.
So the question remains, who told you you were ugly to where you have to alter who you really are? You understand? So now you got to take the mask off. And when you take the mask off and you look in the mirror and you see those age lines that you cake on makeup to cover up, when you take out the false hair and you see that kinky hair, who told you that wasn't attractive or beautiful? You have to ask. Those are the questions that our women have to ask themselves. See, I can tell you who told you that. Every time you look at a television, okay, that promotes one being slender and they always going to put the most attractive models on the TV to model certain clothes. You understand? Even the plus size women, they have to look a certain way.
Yes.
Hair have to be straight.
Yes.
Okay. So the narrative is, if you don't look like this, then you are not attractive. You understand what I'm saying? See, our sister Angela Davis, Toni Morrison. See, when you go back to those Black Power women, when they wore them big afros, they were proud. Beautiful. Up until this day, still, Angela Davis wears her afro. Do you understand what I'm saying? Proud to be African, no makeup. And skin looks just as beautiful today as it did 40 years ago. So what am I saying? We have to begin. That is, when you love yourself, you'll question yourself. Who made me feel so insecure that I have started pacifying myself and saying, I just love and accept all of these, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Inadequacies about myself. When actually, you are actually more than that. You understand what I'm saying? And because you refuse to believe you're more than that, you don't do anything about it. You just accept the narrative and then try to mask it. You understand? By changing how you look as if it's going to make you feel any better, when you still got to take that off at night. you got, so what am I saying? It men the same way. You understand what I'm saying? So let's make it about health. Let's not make it about, you understand, about a natural beauty. Because if you're beautiful, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
You understand? See, nobody has to tell you that you're beautiful if you're beautiful. Other than that's think about it. Okay? Think about it. That nobody has to tell you you're beautiful if you're beautiful.
But Brian, a lot of, I have to speak on behalf of things, when I was in the school system and when I worked on the psych unit, a lot of kids grew up being told by parents, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, loved ones, you're ugly. That was instilled in them. You'll never be nothing. You're nothing. You're just like your old daddy. You'll never be nothing. You're ugly. We'll get your ugly. That was instilled in their formative years. And a lot of that, think about that. Slavery. What did the slave masters tell us, our ancestors? You black, you big lip, you ugly, you monkey. They call them coons, monkeys. They call them everything. That is what broke down the self-esteem and the love for each other, for ourselves. That was the beginning of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do not make excuses for our parents and grandparents that continue to perpetuate the treatment of the slave master onto their children by way of classifying their children the same as the slave master classified their children. Slave master classified you as inferior. Slave master classified you as uncomely, not attractive to look upon. Like you said, slave master classified you as less than human, ranked you with the beast of the field. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And guess what? Some of those things that were used to enslave the minds of our great-grandmothers and grandmothers, and some, in this case, mothers, now is being done by social media. See, they don't have to have a physical slave master. But if you got social media, if you got the television that we call the television that programs an individual by inundating them with all types of false realities that now becomes their perception as it relates to how they function.
And how they feel.
Okay, and how they feel. Then you have the slave master theory. Okay? Slave master slave theory being perpetuated onto our children and onto our parents. And when our parents buy into that, they call their children what's been perpetuated for them to call their children by way of the slave master called the television or social media, or you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so we are in a crux like we've never been before. So we do not excuse ignorance. We do not make excuses for those men and women, for those mothers and fathers.
That's right, we don't.
And see, our culture, the elders would bring them into a circle and they would judge them.
Wow.
You understand?
Yes.
Okay? And they would give them corrective measures in the tribe that had to be done by either that mother or that father. You understand? And they would have a time frame to get those corrective measures in place and to change their attitude and to affect change with the nature and state of their being. If they did not do that, then there were two things that remained: being exiled,
Okay.
or being exterminated.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes, I do.
Okay. See, because everybody that's in the community, if they do not want to function with a code of ethics by way of how the community functions and how the community represents itself, then they do not need to be a part of the community. See, we had that code of ethics prior to our black families and black love being destroyed. You understand? Mm-hmm. And it worked to the point to where John Henry Clark says that we had no jails because there was no need for none. We were self-policing. We had a tribal council that was so effective with correcting and giving solutions to our people that they did not have to lock them away. You understand? Yeah. He says there was no need for nursing homes because we didn't throw our elders out.
All right now.
The whole community worked to take care of the elders and to make sure that the elders in their latter years had everything they needed. You understand? So we are in a fix as a people when we talk about black love. We've gotten so far off the basis. See, everybody looking at these pretty roses here.
I did this for the audience.
I understand, but I'm not talking about that. I'm making a point here. I'm making a point.
Yes.
See, this is what traps us.
Oh, wow.
You understand?
Well, make it clear, Brian. You didn't buy those.
This is what, no, I did not.
He didn't buy those roses.
Okay,
I did it for the audience.
You can leave it there. But what I'm saying is, and I'm using that as an illustration.
I understand.
Okay. When we get more fixated on that than we do on self-correction. Okay. So if you cannot correct yourself, then something is wrong. Okay. Now, when you leave your oppressor to correct you, guess what they're going to do? They're going to build $5 billion prisons that's been sanctioned by a governor that's mentally unstable to actually be running her state. Okay? So when you entrust the correction of yourself to be made by those that hate you anyway, they don't have any mercy when it comes to us. So self-correction by way of the community is another form of self-love, of black love, of self-knowledge. Mm-hmm. You understand?
I do.
Okay. So we have to begin to re-implement those things into our people. We have to begin to reteach each other as it relates to our minds and how we think of each other, how we view each other. I don't care. Listen, people talk about black on black crime.
This is it. They do.
Okay. And the first thing that the media puts out there is the numbers as it relates to black on black crime. And they use that to try to justify the mistreatment that they are still using again or putting on black people by way of policies that have no effect on our communities. Now, what do I mean when I say that? I don't hear them talking about Koreans and Korean crime. Who kills more Koreans than anybody else? Koreans. I don't hear them talking about white on white crime. who kills more white people than any other group? It's white people. I don't hear them talking about Latino crime. Who kills more Latinos than any other group? Latinos. And guess what? Statistically, black on black crime is one of the lowest out of all the groups that exist in America.
Come on now.
But guess who they publicize?
Blacks.
That's
Black on black.
done on purpose. The media does that. Okay? See, you can have one white person that'll kill 100 in a whop. Just one, out for one thing. Go in there and just shoot up everything.
Sure will.
Do you know how many mass shootings are done every year in this country by white folks? When you think about that, do you know how many terroristic acts, bombings, and all this? Those things they do not publicize because the media wants to hide those actions of their white affiliates so that it appears that they are not as barbaric as the so-called Negro that's committing all these crimes against themselves. Okay? So they overexposure. You see what I'm saying? Over-report. Everything is exacerbated when it comes to the Negro in this country because they still have an image that they painted of us. They have to protect that image that they painted of us. See, James Baldwin says this: if the slave is not the black person's problem, it's the white person's problem. Okay? So James said, Dr. Baldwin said, if this country gets rid of the slave, then it finally has to admit that the problem all along was the white person. They are the sickest people in this country.
They are.
Not us. You understand?
Yes.
See, that's why when you see the crack cocaine epidemic, you saw them publicize that, put it all on the news. For Bill Clinton comes out. You see what I'm saying? With the 3 strikes you're out laws. You know, Ronald Reagan, the war on drugs, all of these things. Then that carried on through the Bush administration into the Clinton administration. Now they're locking up, incarcerating in mass numbers black folks. But then the opioid and the heroin epidemic come along, and they want to rehabilitate all of those people.
That's exactly right. That's
So
what
what am I showing you is that black love has been systematically destroyed, and the collateral damage that has happened and that is still happening by way of the same systematic policies and regulations that are put in place to not deal with our issues as it relates to being enslaved for 400 years, being tracked down for 400 years, being brutalized for 400 years. They're not dealing with that. So what we have to do as a people is we have to raise our voice beyond just the media outlets where they got our bourgeois Negroes sitting up there acting like everything hunky-dory because the Democrats are in power now. No, everything is just as messed up as it was when the Republicans were in office. For black folk, nothing have changed. So now we have to raise our voice to the next level to where we will also pose ourselves as a threat to this economy and to this government if necessary. You understand?
I do.
Okay, so one thing I understand, that when people get tired,
When you get sick and tired.
okay, that's what my mama used to always say. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, we're going to do more than just have a 1,000,000-man march on Washington and listen to good speeches. I don't need to hear another speech.
No.
Okay?
Mm-mm.
It's time for us to sit in the White House and be unmovable if necessary. It's time for us to sit in on the debate floor. You understand?
We can start locally, Brian.
And we have to start locally, and we will start locally. But what I am showing you is that if things are really going to change, okay, I'm not looking for those that call themselves black leaders, because they are not black leaders. Okay, they are what Dr. Julia O'Hare says, they are leading blacks. They are not black leaders, they are leading blacks. They're good actors. Okay?
Wow.
They are good actors, but they are nobody's leaders, because they have bought into the buffoonery of thinking that them being associated with a certain party can change the dynamic of our people. No, it only changes the bourgeois dynamic. It does not change those that are below the bourgeois dynamic. Do you understand?
I do understand.
Okay.
I do.
So we as a people, in order to get back to black love, we got to see black love on a broader scale than just I.
And that's the problem.
Than just the individual. You understand?
I got you.
Or my immediate counterpart, or companion, or wife,
or just my children,
or my family.
My family,
yes,
immediate family.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We got to see it on a broader spectrum than that, because let me tell you, when it really hits the fan, nobody is going to be able to escape what's coming as relates to black people. Okay? The pandemic exposed a lot.
It did.
The downsizing.
It did.
The healthcare system.
Yes, it did.
The insurance system.
And I'm a witness of that.
Okay, all of that was affected. Guess who got hit harder than anybody?
African Americans.
I was sharing with the young men Saturday that we went from owning roughly almost 2% of the businesses to now less than 0.3%. Black businesses, they are saying now, statistically, do not exist in this country anymore.
Wow.
So, what am I showing you? And I know we're over time here. We did our hour. But I'm showing you that we cannot define black love the way our oppressors have looked at us and defined us as it relates to each other. We have to move beyond that now. Enough of faking the funk. Let's really come
together.
Yes, and be real with one another. Be real with ourselves. We got to recapture that self-knowledge, but you got to go back. There has to be a Sankofa experience.
Okay, now, Brian.
You know, we have to go back to see who our ancestors was. Like I said, our history didn't begin with slavery, and it didn't end with the civil rights.
No, it did not. It
Okay?
did not.
Our history, let me say that again, did not begin with slavery, and it did not end with civil rights. We got to be conscious and aware enough. Okay? Just like I was saying today, only thing they want to teach our children about is Dr. Martin Luther King, because they push the concept of the beloved community and integration. And they never talk about the last 2 years of Dr. King's life, when the FBI and the CIA and the whole concept of COINTELPRO, all of these things were put in place monitoring Dr. King, because Dr. King had come out and was verbally opposing them. In his speech to Americas, he calls out the government and says that you have done nothing for our people. Poor blacks are in a worse condition than they've ever been. They are not educated, and you have done nothing to make sure we can receive an equal education. You understand what I'm saying?
I did.
See, so they never want to talk about that.
No.
But they want to push on our kids.
Yeah. Martin Luther King.
And I our great ancestor, Dr. King,
is turning in his grave.
Is upset.
Yes, he is.
That we allow them to continue to write the narrative for our children, and even some of us as adults. We think that Dr. King is the end-all, be-all. And don't look at the last 2 years of Dr. King's life.
We don't.
When he openly exposed the government, when he openly went against, he had his own best friends to turn against him. He had the preacher to turn against him, his own organization that he started, SCLC.
Yes.
Did not agree with him. You understand what I'm saying? Ralph Abernathy came out against him. See, all of these things we don't want to talk about.
No. That's the elephant in the room, Brian.
It's not the elephant in the room.
Well, that's the way they treat
it. That they do treat it as such.
They treat it
But
that
what, what I'm saying is, and I know we got to end, is that we need to get some sense about us. Okay? To start looking beyond what the media and these people write about us and allowing them to continue to tell our story and to write our narrative. And then just accept, like you were saying earlier, okay, and like I was talking about, just accept that this is the way it is and I'm okay with this. I'm just perfectly fine.
Really?
Because I've got my house and I've got my car and my good job.
And my children are fine.
For the state.
They're educated now.
I'm a teacher, or I'm a nurse, and I'm a social worker, and I don't believe in that anymore. see, that's what kind of Negro that we need to give them two choices like our ancestors did: exile or extermination. Because you're just in the way. You're part of the problem. Okay? So I'm going to end with that.
You guys,
100 Amazing Facts by Brother J.A. Rogers, one of the most brilliant historians that is never talked about, doesn't get his due. Friend of Carter G. Woodson as well.
Yes.
That doesn't get his due. So that book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof, is an easy read, only about 50, 60 pages.
Yeah. One thing before we close, I want to stress this. And this has been pressing on my heart for a long time. Brian and I don't want anything financially. This is something that
don't speak for me in that
Brian,
regard.
We don't need
don't say that.
Well,
listen. What problem that black folks have had, you cannot do anything without funding. Okay, if the nonprofit organization that gets $1 million that don't do anything for the community, if it comes in my hand, I'm going to do something with it.
Okay.
Okay, so don't say we don't want any money. Okay, y'all, here I am again, correcting her. We don't speak like that. That is a backwards Negro's thinking.
Oh, Brian. Okay.
Okay, I'm on a roll tonight.
He's on a roll, and I'm used to this. I get this all the time.
No, she don't.
Yes, I do. But I know how to give it back. I was a debater, so I love that. But what I do want to stress, I noticed, and we've been doing this for it'll be a year in May. We've been doing these talk shows for almost a year, and I've never seen more than 20 people at one time or throughout the show viewing this show. That goes back to reading, and I'm guilty of that. Brian has hundreds of books. He's done hundreds of books. He has tons of research that he has done. He studies, as the Bible says, study to show thyself approved. This man has studied. He continues to study to educate us. And I was guilty. I didn't sit down before I met Brian and read all this black history. I was a nurse. I wanted to know everything I could know about healthcare, about diseases, about medications. So that's where my mindset was. But what I'm saying is that no one shares these videos. you don't know who's out there that may actually want to hear it. They may not be a friend of mine on Facebook, because right now the only people that view this show are, other than the people that go on YouTube to Men and Women of Destiny, are my friends that are on Facebook. I am asking you to please share these videos. We don't discuss anything that we can't back up. And like Brian says, he can take anything, any subject concerning the federal government, concerning black history, concerning slavery, even telling us about how the Valentine Day derived. How did that come up? Most people don't know that. So if he is investing his time to give us this knowledge, for those of us that are not avid researchers and readers of black history, this is your opportunity to get it. Because every session he shares a book, a small read. Everybody knows my girlfriends, Phyllis, Teresa, Stephanie, Pat, Deb. We talk, we've shared things together. We love black history. Teresa Young, my hat is off to you. This girl is doing her research. She is sharing a lot of black history out there. We need this. We need this because we haven't had this. This was not shared with us because my age group, my generation, we were in schools that were black and white, that were segregated. Okay? So I'm asking you to please.
Black and white is integrated.
Integrated. I'm sorry, Brian. Correct me. I stand to be corrected. We were in integrated schools. So even when schools became segregated, blacks branched off, and I'm speaking on Selma, we still did not get black history. How can we move forward if we don't know our history? And I'm guilty. I was one of the most, I'm telling you, I'm guilty. I'm going to raise my hand. I can't talk about anybody because I was just as bad until I met this man. What Brian wants to do for our people, it would, I promise you, within 5 years, this will be a different America. If people would listen, if they would even ask questions. You got a lot of people out there, some strong black historians. Shakira and her husband. They are powerful black people. You got people out there that want to help Selma, Alabama. Brian has some ideas for Selma that would have changed the dynamics of Selma, Alabama overnight. And I said, Brian, that's my home, but our people are not going to be receptive. They don't want to hear it. You know, if you don't want to change, if you want to stay in the same condition and you don't want to move any further, as Brian said, get out the way.
Yeah, it's time to move forward.
It's time to move forward. And we as African Americans, we're educated.
Into the plow now.
Let's do better. Let's take it upon ourselves to do better. I'm sharing it everywhere I go, every chance I get. And I'm asking you to do the same thing. It doesn't hurt. If anything, it's definitely going to help. With that being said, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Because it's not a soapbox, it's fact, Brian. It is fact. So.
You called it a soapbox, not I.
There he goes. It's okay. I'm still learning words not to say. Words have power.
That's exactly right.
And if I'm saying I'm on a soapbox, that's not being.
That's right.
That's not good.
You just sharing facts.
I'm sharing facts. And with that being said, I'm gonna end this tonight. I wish everybody, and I pray that everybody has a wonderful, wonderful week. We look forward. Next week, though, it'll be a little different. We will be on Michelle Speaks. Brian will be doing a 2-part segment on Michelle Speaks. We will be posting that. We will be sharing that with many people. So if I send it to you, please share. Michelle Speaks will be doing a segment on Brian for the next 2 Sundays. So we're asking you to join us then on Michelle Speaks. And I will do that. I will share that with everybody. But without further ado, because Brian is about to cut off me, from going too lengthy.
Yeah, really.
I love y'all. Y'all know I do. If I can't do nothing but love you, I love you. So,
right.
Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And please share this video.
YouTube, please go to it. Thank you.
Yes, men and women of destiny. I love you. Dewana, thanks for watching tonight. Joyce Whiteley, I love you guys. Thank you.